Hello, welcome to All for United and All for United WFC, depending on which side of the divide you've decided to access us today. We're very, very pleased to have you here. We've got loads to talk about, and it's the hot topic. It's the burning topic. Why? Why have we decided to put it on both channels? What have we decided to do today? Well, everybody wants to talk about this. It's the hot topic for everybody. But what we decided here at All for United is that this topic, this subject, it covers Manchester United. It's not just about Manchester United women. It's not just about Manchester United men. And what we thought was, well, why not get everybody to just air their points and air their stuff together rather than us doing two shows, one on the men's channel, one on the women's channel. So it's very much neutral. We're talking about Manchester United as a whole. You might hear a little bit about what women's fans are thinking. You might hear a little bit about what men's fans are thinking. What we will say, hands up, every single one of us in this box has attended at some point in our lives, men's matches and women's matches. So very much fans of Manchester United as a whole. We understand there's going to be some out there that maybe support the men more or maybe support the women more or exclusively. But either way, you've all got an opinion and we've all got a stake in this process. So we know very little about what's going on, let's be honest. But we're all just going to sit here and just shoot the breeze and find out what it is that we're thinking. So we're going to pop this into just a little minute and a half, just your opening thoughts when you found out on Friday the two different bids specifically that were put in. What were your opening thoughts? Not necessarily how they developed, but just how you felt when you heard that the Glazers might well be selling up. And Connor, as you're here, we shall kick off with you.
Evening. I don't know why I opened up with that. There's a comment literally is in my opening thoughts, just because I just want to bring it up very quickly. Who said the Glazers are selling? So, and it's not clickbait. It's in the title purely because it has been reported, but I'm sure we're going to get onto it, that a potential American group, there's a potential opportunity for the Glazers to take an investment, and that would mean that they would retain their shares, maybe lose some of their shares or whatever, but there is a chance of that. So it's not clickbait. There is some truth potentially in that. Ultimately, though, as you're going to hear over the next bit, none of us really know what's going on. We're going off the information that is out there. That's what we're going to be talking about. In terms of my initial thoughts, yeah, I mean, I don't know where I stand on this. I'm probably going to go off what the comments say and what you four say over the next kind of hour or so. But I mean, it's good, I guess, that it's finally happening. But as I just said there, it might not. And I will say as well, the grass isn't always green on either side. We don't know where this is going to end up. You know, the two out there at the moment. Obviously, the public ones. There's probably 4 or 5 that we don't know about that are private, that are keeping their cards close to their chest. So I don't know. I'm a bit torn at the moment. Everyone's like, oh, look at what the Qataris are saying. We're going to get into that. But they're going to say the right things. They're trying to buy one of the biggest clubs in the world. Like, they're not going to come out and start saying bad things, are they? They're going to say, you know, the best that they want. And every single bidder, the Glazers PR teams are working around the clock right now trying to get some good PR out for them. So I don't know. I'm a bit torn at the moment. But it's good to see, I think, after all this time, some movement on it. Because it's been a while, but it's pretty much been all my, play the age card here, but it's been pretty much all my life I've known the Glazers in United. So it's hard for me to remember a time pre-Glazer, which will shock some people, I'm sure. But there we are.
There we go. Charlie, how about you? Was there a party in the Charlie household or not? How was you feeling on Friday?
When it was first announced that there'd been bids come in, I was really pleased. Obviously, having not looked into what they were really or who they were from fully by that point, I was just glad that there was a chance that they were going. I think even when like Fergie and David Gill were still there, a lot of people talked about those two leaving at the same time is kind of what did for the club as well. That was some of the chat, but I don't think it was. I think if Fergie was still here, David Gill was still around, United would still have got into the mess that they were in. And I feel like nothing good came from the Glazers. Nothing. The club was self-sufficient, built their own success. They didn't buy their way to the top, Man United, but now they're in mass amounts of debt because of them. They didn't make decisions for Man United based on footballing reasons. I don't think. I think that explains a lot of signings we've made that have been unsuccessful. I've just hated every moment of them being around. So my initial thoughts were extremely pleased about it. Lots of screaming and cheering and running around the kitchen was my initial reaction, if I'm being honest, because it's just been hell. I think having them in charge. been really difficult, I think, for us as United fans, because other fans haven't understood or haven't wanted to understand why it's been so difficult. What's the problem? They spent all this money. They haven't spent any money. They've taken loads of money out. They took 24 million out last year, I think, having done nothing to help develop and build the club. And as much as it was a shame that Ronaldo left under a cloud, some of the things he said were spot on. For Man United to have second-rate facilities for their football teams isn't good enough. And that's down to them. United make a lot of money, 700 million in revenue, I think it is. And that wasn't being pumped back into the football club, I don't believe. So I was really pleased. Whether that means that the people putting bids in, they're going to be different. We don't know if that means better, but I'm sure that's what we'll get into talking about. But I've hated them being in charge of us.
Okay. Mark, I think it's probably fair to say that you have followed Manchester United probably longer in terms of physically going than the rest of us here. So what were your thoughts when you heard the news breaking on Friday?
So it's the news that I think most United fans wanted to hear, that actually someone's now come in and they've made a bid. And it was the new, I agree with what Charlie said. The Glazers have done nothing for the past number of years, especially through a pandemic we've all had. They've just taken money and leached it all out, it's the wrong PR. And obviously then we had the ESL debacle. But when you look at what's potentially going to happen, it's huge. It's dynamic. It could change the club as a whole. Now, do the Glazers need to go? God, yeah, they do need to go. They're running it into the ground and they're not doing anything to help it out. So whoever comes in, whoever that may be, whether it's the Qataris or Sir Jim or any of the other two bidders that have been private bidders that we don't know about, whoever comes in, the only thing I want from them is to help build the club back up to where it can be and to regain that legacy of Sir Alex, of David Gill and Sir Matt and all those people before it. Because that's what Manchester United is. It's that. So get rid of the Glazers and whoever comes in, just run the club as a football club.
Fair enough. Andrew, would you pretty much echo what's been said already?
Yeah, pretty much. I say I'm pleased that bids have come in as well. The two that we know about. Obviously, there's others that we're not. They'll probably get announced probably in the next few weeks. Probably who else is coming in a bid for it. But I feel like we might be reaching the end game with the Glazers finally. I mean, when they initially take out the club, we was all opposed to it, and then it was like we wanted them out from day one, and just the lack of communication. They never wanted to ever engage with us fans from the start. And was like, well, we are the custodians of the club, so we'll be here long after they've gone. So it's just like with the potential owners coming in as well. It's just all owners have their good and bad points. So it's just, I think a fan I sit next to is like be careful what you wish for. So it's like, another Glazers, at least we know what they're like and what they're about, but we're just unsure of what's the future holds. But I'm just hoping these owners just, put the fans at the heart of the club as well, because, we are the people that go to the matches, and, just, we want to see the United return to their best. I mean, the last 10 years or so has not been so enjoyable, but I'm just, I'm hoping these owners, will invest, and, give us, everything to make us great once again. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, as we go further through the process, what, once those potential owners have had access to the books of United and see what they see and what the Glazers decide to do, whether they try and play off the potential owners against each other, trying to get more money out of them. Who knows?
Fair enough. Obviously, as we can see, there's so many things that could be discussed. We probably won't even touch the sides of some of the things that we could talk about as we go through this myriad, this labyrinth that we're going to enter. But clearly, Sporty has got his priorities exactly straight. Are we going to stick money into the women's team? Are we going to build a new stadium? What are we going to do when they come in? No, this is what we need to do. Make sure the badge says Manchester United Football Club. Priorities, that's what I like. That's a man with a plan. That's the first job. Let's make sure our get new shirts, basically. But yeah, why not? Some people like that. Some people couldn't care less. I fall in the latter for that one. But it did cause a bit of a furore when it happened. I'm going to throw out a little bit of a curveball. I was going to throw this out maybe a bit towards the end. But Connor, as we all know, you've been lauding it up on these shows that we're going to win the quadruple, pretty much. You know, United winning the title, all that sort of jazz. And as we know on the other channel, on the women's channel, I've been telling everyone that we're going to win the league. So if Man United are coming home with a quadruple this season, and Man United women are going to come home having won the WSL, do we really need to get rid of the Glazers if they're providing that, or is this just a nice little goodbye present?
It's interesting. Someone said this on a show last week, I think it was, that the fact that they might end up leaving on one of our best seasons since Sir Alex left, maybe. I mean, it's a weird one for me. I'm probably the wrong person to ask on this, purely because I've never looked into the Glazers too much because I watch the team that's on the pitch. I don't fully care too much about the people who are right at the top until obviously now what we've seen has been going on in the last kind of 10 years. It's really kind of come to the forefront, obviously with Old Trafford and the infrastructure and the playing squad and everything else that you could say needs investment. But ultimately, you go to the games or you watch the games on TV because of the players and the managers, the teams that you follow, men's, women's academy team. So I'm not as fussed. This is where we're going to get into it in terms of the different owners that could come in, because there are potential knock-on effects for fans then when you're looking at some of the people that are interested. So it's such a weird one because I don't know personally. If you're saying it's a goodbye present, I mean maybe, but I don't think they've ever fully cared too much. When you were talking about the badge there, football club got taken off because Manchester United now is a brand. It's a global brand around the world that makes a hell of a lot of money. That's why I imagine football club was taken off. I don't know. But, when you're looking at it from a brand point of view, they're quids in really when they're looking at what they've done for Manchester United from that side. But from the football club side, which is the side that I'm sure, that I know myself and I'm sure everyone on here and the viewers actually care about, is the playing side. It's the football side of the club that we all want to see improve. And if obviously the add-on to that is the infrastructure and everything else, then sure. But yeah, it's goodbye present. Sure, I'd rather us just win a load of things and whatever happens at the top happens at the end of the day.
Interesting point. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and break this down a little bit. We're going to break down the bids as such, and of course as we go around we'll try and move it on a little bit with each of you, so we're not just repeating the same points all the time. But if you do have something that's burning that you want to say on something that's been said, please do come out and say it. We're not trying to censor anybody. If you've got something to say it. It's all right. Wherever you are in the comments, not a problem. We're going to break it down looking specifically at what the Qatari bid offered, because that one seems to have the most detail as such. We're going to look at how these bids, either or, could affect the football teams, how it could affect our training facilities. These are all things that have been mentioned by, where's she gone? She was just here. She mentioned it just a minute ago. There we go. We're going to talk about these sort of things as well. The contracts we'll mention as well. The stadium and the infrastructure, the fan experience, because a lot of the negativity that surrounds some of this can basically come down to how the fans are feeling as well, and also the community project. So we're going to look at where the money needs to be put, and whether or not really that's the important thing. But we'll kick off with the obvious one, which is the football team. We talk a lot about investment. The men's side, it looks like it's getting there. Maybe needs one or two more positions that might need a bit of strengthening. The women's side, we've always said that, give that club £5 million and watch them fly. It wouldn't be a problem. Charlie, you've seen both. Where do you think an investment, whether that be Sir Jim or whether that be the Qataris, whereabouts would you see the football teams going, and what sort of investment do you think is required within the football team in order to make a successful bid for you?
We're talking just player recruitment here, or anything around what will help? Just
the team itself, the players, the personnel. What sort of investment would be needed within that in order to make it a successful bid? What would you be wanting to hear from the Qataris? Like, for example, or Jim Ratcliffe, if they're saying we're going to buy Kylian Mbappe, is that what we need? Or would you rather they just gave us 100 million that we could go out and spend on a couple of players we need? Where do you think we stand on that?
I think historically we've perhaps made too many signings based on the number of shirts that players will sell. So if someone was coming out and going, if new owners were coming in and saying, we're going to get Mbappe and we're going to get this player and that player, I'd be thinking, oh gosh, so the manager's not making the decisions then here. And we potentially look at what's going on at Chelsea, and that looks like an absolute mess, not of Graham Potter's making. You can say that as well. I would want new owners to come in and say they're going to financially back the manager, because again, we've had too much involvement at the top of the club from people that don't know football, that don't know recruitment, that don't know how to invest the money in players to improve the football team rather than just sell shirts. And obviously making money is important when you're as big a club as Man United, but you also make money by being successful on the pitch as well as off it, I think. So I would want them to come in and say they're going to financially back the managers, plural. So obviously we have Eric and we have Mark. That's what I would want. I would also want them to come in and say that they're going to look at the recruitment strategy and policies, so get people in positions who can support with that. I think that's quite important on the women's side at the moment. I think to provide, because I know we've got Polly in, but again, on her own, that's a massive job. I think looking at the staffing around the women's side would be really helpful for the development of them as well. But yeah, for me, someone coming in and saying we're going to get X, Y, and Z, I hate that. I hate the sound of that, because it's not the manager and the coaching staff making the decision. For me, that would worry me. I would rather they just said we're going to give the manager financial backing.
No worries, fair points. I'd just like to point out, Paul, I mean, you've thrown in a few great comments so far. I'd just like to point out that from the things I've read, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe was to get it, the 500 million debt wouldn't be on the club, it would be on his company, Ineos. But obviously, Manchester United as a football club would be one of its assets. So if something went wrong with Ineos, which, let's be honest, would need something catastrophic to happen for a billionaire to start losing their money. But it would be on Ineos, not on the club. So it does get rid of the debt, insofar as it's not on the club. But absolutely, they're using debt to service debt, because that's what businesses do. It's tax deductible. Ask Jimmy Carr for more information on that, allegedly. Great news, everyone. There's a new person who's entered the ownership race. It's breaking news. Look at this. Vincent, bless him, I think he's missed out a word. But Qatar have the men doing a pre-tour, and I bet you the women will go to some other country once I have took ownership of the club. Look at this. So breaking news here on All for United. Vincent Bullock, bless him, he's going to be the new Avram Glazer. Great news. So there we go. And yes, absolutely, you're spot on. It is Man United versus Barcelona tomorrow. We're all very excited about it. Join us on Friday evening on the men's channel, where we will absolutely rip that to pieces, whether it be for good or whether it be for bad. But until then, Andrew Wall, question for you. The same thing with the football teams. I feel like there's a lot of things that can be pointed at the Glazers, lots of things that people can be angry about. But the one thing I would say they have done is they have given their managers money to purchase players. Whether they've purchased the right players or not, different thing altogether. Would you say that's a fair comment, or am I just chatting rubbish, which has been said before?
It's a difficult one, because, as I say, being reported £1 billion being spent on players, and if you go through all those players, how many of them have been that good for United? It's just like, you could probably say a handful. And just over the last 10 years, well, before Ten Hag, I'm just thinking, you know, the players that have come in, it's just like they just plucked a name out of the air and just thought, oh, we'll go and get him, he's available. And just like, there's just no strategy to it. I'm just thinking we were just chasing like some very good players, and then I'm just thinking like Di Maria, Falcao. We thought, oh, when they was coming in, I was like, well, United are going to get back on top now. It's like, they all turned out to be like damn squibs, and I'm like, it's just like, I feel like money just been thrown up the wall, and I'm just like, we need to now going forward, and I can see it under Ten Hag, he has like presenting the final decision on things and saying, well, I want these players, and if I don't get them, then yeah, we look elsewhere. And like I say, if the players don't want to come to United, then that's fair enough. We want players that are going to give everything out on that pitch. But the Glazers have been so, as I like to call them, agents of chaos. They just come in and call chaos everywhere, and just like, I just want that chaos to, come to an end, because the longer they stay around, I'm just thinking, I fear for what happens to the club. I'm just thinking, we say about like, the stadium as well. It's like it does need a bit of redeveloping, or whether it is a new stadium or not. But it's just with the Glazers, I'm just like, yeah, I just don't want them to hear any longer.
No problems. Fair points. Interesting. You make a fair point here. He did say no new debt will be put on United. So, yeah, that is a fair point. That definitely was in the statement. And John Fry, absolutely, you can disagree with me as much as you like, but I'm not entirely sure which point. I say a lot of things. If you could let me know what particularly you disagree with, that would be fabulous, because that would help me to know whether or not I need to respond, or whether I could just go, okay, fair point. Mark, I'm going to ask you a similar sort of question, but move on slightly. If you want to have a talk about the team, feel free. But the reason why I've chosen you to ask this is because you've been there. You've been to Carrington. You know what the training grounds look like and that sort of thing. Upon your wandering around and your musings and your observations, what would you think that the club would require from any sort of investor that would make it a positive bid for you with regards to training facilities?
Right, I'll come on to the training facilities. I just want to talk about the team very, very briefly.
Fine, go for it.
It's become very clear that the Glazers, at the time, they didn't have a clue who to recruit. As Andrew said, we brought in Di Maria, we brought in Falcao, we brought in some really average players who promised the world. But you look, since we brought in John Murter as director of football, the Glazers have been out of it. And actually, every signing this summer, I think it's the first time I can honestly say it, every signing has worked. Because we've got a person in position who knows what they're doing across the men's side. The women's side, as Charlie said rightly, that's on Polly now, and hopefully she'll get her feet under the table and work out well. With Carrington, the training ground, yeah, it needs updating. It really does, but they've just acquired all new land around it. So they already are starting to expand Carrington. They are building a building for the women's side of things, which they're going to put with the academy. So the women's development team, they're going to be moving to Carrington full time as well. They've put the women's team now have 2 pitches, one of which has undersoil heating, the other one doesn't. So they're giving the women's side around Carrington, they've given it a refresh. They really have. They're building, a new, I think it's 2 new 1,500 stands, so people can go and watch the 18s, the 23s, whenever they play at Carrington. So the development of Carrington has already, in a way, kind of started. So what you want any new investor to come and do is carry that on and make it a state-of-the-art training complex. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's outdated. Yeah, it could do with a lick of paint. But interestingly, when you go into Carrington and you go to the academy building, and there is now a mural on the wall of past players who have come through the academy, and now they've got we've got this one club ethos of the club, and it's now starting to include Thani and Zelly, along with the men's side. So whoever comes in, you want to keep that ethos and you want to keep that building there, because it shows whoever comes through the door that it's a one club mentality, and update us, modernize us, but keep the history. And there's a little part of history there at Carrington, and it's it's the same for me in the Cliff. I remember going to watch the Cliff, and when the United women's team got formed and they said they were going to train at the Cliff and they were going to tear it down, that was sacrosanct, because that's where Sir Matt was. And now Carrington is where Sir Alex started, and you want to keep a bit of Carrington the way it is because of Sir Alex and his history, but modernize it. And like I said, they've already started doing that, and they just want to improve it.
Fair points. Thank you. And Connor, again, looking at that sort of thing, talking about the broader infrastructure, there's been loads of conversations about the stadium itself, Old Trafford. And of course, this has been rumbling on even under the Glazers, whether or not there would be a rebuild, whether there'd just be a revamp, whether there'd be a restructure, what they're going to do to it, a renovation. I've always made it clear what I want. Old Trafford is Old Trafford. You know, when you stand on that pitch, it may be different grass, but you know, I was lucky enough when Stevenage went up on the playoff final to be doing the media studies stuff there. So I went out onto the middle of that pitch, and you look up at the Stretford end, and you just, the hairs at the back of your neck go up, because you just think all of them, they've been stood in this very spot. And if you look at some of the videos, that stadium can move. And then all of a sudden, you'd have to be stood in a car park if you wanted to be stood in that very same spot. And it's not the same, is it? It's like, you know, I know we had King Richard buried under a car park, but nobody's really going there going, oh my goodness, King Richard, that's amazing. It's a car park, possibly on the back of a Lidl, which, let's be honest, isn't very exciting. It's not like looking up at the Stretford end and going, crikey, that's the same thing that these guys would have been looking at. So where do you stand on that? What would you want? Do you want a brand new stadium? Do you think that's what we need? Or do we just need, and this is where Mr. Fry was arguing with me about, it was about the Glazers spending the money. I think they have put the money into the playing side. It's things like the stadium they've neglected, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, Mark will probably be the better person in terms of to come to after this, just because he probably knows the land better than me. But, you know, that video that was put out, I can't remember who tweeted it, but it was a good little video, the three options that Old Trafford could look like, you know, with a redevelopment. One of them was a move next door, similar to how Spurs did. To be honest, I don't really know. I've always under the impression, the last time I went to Old Trafford, you know, it's still a great stadium, but obviously it's got its issues. It's a little bit outdated now when you're looking at it. But I'm with everyone else. I don't want to see it knocked down and move somewhere else, because, like you said, you're losing everything that Old Trafford is. As I said, Mark can probably add a better thing than me on this in terms of what can be done around Old Trafford, but I'd love to see it renovated anyway, however much that's going to cost. And that's where it comes back to when people are saying, and when you're talking about the individual bidders and what they can offer, this is my slight issue, just going off on a little bit of a tangent for 90 seconds. This is my slight issue with Ratcliffe, because I don't think he's got the money. I think he can probably run United, but I don't think he's got the money to invest in redeveloping Old Trafford or building a new stadium and the first teams and doing everything else that other bidders would offer. Because I don't think he's got that, you know, the fact that he's having to use potential debt, albeit on Ineos, to buy the club, I think shows that. There was a story about it earlier. So that's my one concern from that point of view. Obviously, the other sides have got concerns as well, don't get me wrong. So, yeah, I'm not too sure. It's a weird one. But, yeah, I'll let Mark talk about the kind of area around Old Trafford, because I think he can probably add a better insight, I think, into any revamp or something there.
Well, much like Beetlejuice, your name has been mentioned, so we might as well do it 3 times. Mark Henry, go.
So I'm kind of drawn. I want a brand new stadium, but I also want Old Trafford to be kept, because it's Old Trafford. With the bigger issue around it, and it really is that if they tear down Old Trafford to rebuild on site, where are United going to play? Because there is no stadium in the northwest of England that is big enough to hold United. And let me just say that when United have ever talked about moving, they've always said the first people they need to get into a stadium are season ticket holders. Andrew and I are season ticket holders at Old Trafford. We're part of the lucky few. There's 55,000 season ticket holders that they have to move somewhere. Etihad can't hold us. Anfield can't hold us. And it's not just that they can't hold us. Would we really want to play at Anfield, or would we really want to play at the Etihad? The answer is probably not. And the other side to that is, would those clubs allow us to play there? And the answer to that is probably not. So I think a redevelopment is more than likely. However, there are issues. On the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, you've obviously got the Mersey flowing. And then behind us, we've got the rail tracks, which is a problem because it's still a rail run. It still runs. So where do we build? And those are the logistical problems that there are people out there who are earning a lot more money than I am trying to work all that out. Look, does the roof need fixing where I sit? Yes. Even when it's not raining, I'm getting wet. Does it need a lick of paint? Look, they've given it a little bit of lick of paint around, but inside it needs a bit more. Are they now putting Wi-Fi into the stadium? Yes. Slowly but surely, they are building the ground into a better ground. It just needs to be bigger and to be more modern. So the question is where they build from. I also agree. I think we need a smaller stadium on site for the women's team or the youth team to stop us going to Lee, because that's also an issue that we've always talked about, getting to Lee. So, but around there, you've got the Ford garage, which is someone's business. You've got hotel football, and then you've got the shops and everything else, and you've got houses that are owned on St Matt Busby Way by people who generally live in them. And where do these people go if we start into a building site? So, as I said, I think there's cleverer people out there who will earn a lot more money than I am trying to solve all these problems.
Absolutely. And there are literally loads of them to talk about there. Paul Greaves is talking about you don't need to move if you build on the same site. There's enough room to build whilst Old Trafford is still operational. But the point is it's still building. It's still going to be a brand new stadium, and it will get rid of all of the history, at which point it will no longer be Old Trafford. You know, we don't want to end up like Reading when we've got the Select Car Leasing Stadium or, you know, the Poundland Anfield. You know, you don't
do you
need
not do you not want the Elon Musk Arena? It does
Oh,
that
hello.
not work for you? Just throwing his name in there as a potential option as well. Because 100%, if he bought us, that's what the stadium would be called. It would be called something like, I don't know, you know, he's got SpaceX and Tesla and everything else. It would be something funky, wouldn't it? It'd be something like that, Arena, I'd have thought. But who knows? Potentially, if you talk about stadium names. I mean, that's a genuine concern, though. If you're building a stadium, a new owner might want, you know, if they're going to build their own stadium and rename it, they could well do. It's not within the, you know, when the whole video here is talking about new ownership. They could well want that. They could well want to build a new stadium and go, right, well, we're going to name this something else. It's certainly an option.
I think from a conversation I've had with someone, and I'm obviously not going to mention their name, is that if it was going to a brand new build, then obviously I think there is naming rights to be had on a brand new build. If we are staying on site, then it stays Old Trafford.
I'll tell you what, if we win the league this year, it needs to be called the Eric Ten Hag Stadium.
Where do you put his statue?
Say again?
Where do we put his statue?
Where do we put his statue? Opposite side of the Trinity. Trinity one end, Ten Hag the other, maybe?
Not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Stick it on the top. He could be like the Cockerel at Spurs Stadium, just looking over. Hello.
I wouldn't put anything on our roofs at Old Trafford. It'll likely come through.
Good point. Yeah, better fix it first. Absolutely. Charlie and Andrew, I'm going to come to you two as well about this, because obviously another thing that was mentioned within the ownership, and what we've got to understand with this is that everything we've discussed so far, the Qataris have said, yes, we will do that. Yes, we will invest in the football teams. Yes, we will invest in the training centre. Yes, we will invest in the stadium and the infrastructure. Yes, we'll invest in the fan experience. And yes, we're going to invest in the communities. As Connor said, they've said yes to all of that. Ineos and other bidders haven't necessarily mentioned these things specifically. You would assume they would address them within time. So we fully understand, therefore, why it is that a lot of people would say about the Qataris, yes, we want these people because they're selling us this dream of everything that they're going to come in and do. But the one I think that possibly holds up against the Qataris is possibly the fan experiences one. Because if we take the World Cup that occurred earlier on this year, one of the things that was absolutely massive about that happening in Qatar was obviously the potential human rights issues. Fan experience to me is that whoever you are, you should feel welcome coming to Old Trafford or to LSV to watch Manchester United play. Whoever you are, we're all Manchester United fans, and that's who we are when we turn up. There's a lot of fans that are stating their opposition, for want of a better word, to Qatari ownership based on how those fans are going to feel if they're not feeling welcome coming into Old Trafford anymore. That's part of the issue. Where do you think fan experience stands? What do you expect, rather, from a new owner when we start talking about fan experiences? So, Charlie, we'll kick off with you on that one. What do you think a fan should experience under a new ownership?
That was heavy. That was it.
Kind of has to go there. It's the only one, isn't it? It can't all be fun and games and spend loads of imaginary money that we haven't got yet. It's not Monopoly, you know.
Oh, it's what you've said. It's every fan, everyone who is a supporter of Manchester United Football Club should feel like they are a part of it and they are part of whatever makes Manchester United great. It's, I think, a really difficult thing about this for lots of people is, and I know even as a female, it's lots of people don't have to worry about what these things will feel like. So if your club's being run by somebody who isn't accepting of you based on gender or sexuality or whatever else it might be, you don't have to worry about those things. It's not about you. You're a white male, so you'll probably be fine. To be honest, if we be completely honest with you, I've just tried not to think about it. That's what I've tried to do as a female, which sounds really ridiculous and really selfish, but I've tried not to think about it because it's actually something that you can't argue against. That's their way of life. That's how females are. If talking about from a female perspective, that's how they're viewed as sort of inferior. So the easiest thing for me to do has been not to think about it and just focus on the football side of things. And from the football side of things, I just want Man United to be successful. So yeah, it's everyone. It's a given, isn't it? Everyone should feel included. Everyone should feel part of it. No one should feel like they're not welcome at the club. And I could sit here and say I don't think they will, but I don't know. I don't know how other people will feel. I don't know how people will be made to feel. I think it's really difficult for Qatarians to come in and instill their values on what is a British institution. That's what Manchester United is. It's a British institution. So I can't imagine they would come in. They could come in and say, well, we're not going to be accepting of these different types of people. I don't know. It's like you said, everyone should feel welcome, regardless of whatever makes us different to one another. And it's just really difficult. See, there's this. I read someone had written about this and sort of said, obviously, yeah, the right thing to do is to not want owners that don't view people as equal, that maybe won't view the women's side in the right way, won't view the Rainbow Red Devils in the same way. And they were saying, but with regards to football in England, the horse has already bolted. The horse has bolted from the stable. So how much of a difference can it make? I don't know. It's a really difficult one to answer, which is why I've tried to avoid thinking about it until right now, when you've just put me in this really.
Yeah, well, I forced you into it. I'm just on one of those type of people, Charlie. You should know that.
Thing is, I'm having to really think about it now, and it's like you're absolutely right. I can't say I don't agree with gender inequality or inequality based on sexuality at all. I don't agree with it. So I'm just trying to think about the football because people don't like to have uncomfortable conversations. I'm hating every second of having to answer this question. That's why it's an important question. It's important that you've asked it, because now this is really uncomfortable.
I feel that people do need to take that on board, because I'm seeing loads of people who are all just Qataris in, and we do have to be fair to them. The World Cup itself, although it wouldn't necessarily, as you've just said, it wouldn't affect me. You know, a straight white man, football, I can go to it wherever I want. It's not going to be a problem. There's no dramas. But we're talking about other people. You talk about the Rainbow Devils. They put out their statement because that's their life. And at the end of the day, we're all just Manchester United fans. It doesn't matter who we are. I mean, like, Connor eats his dinner with a knife and fork, no matter what it is. But we still welcome him in as a Manchester United fan. I like pineapple on pizza, yet you all invited me in as a Manchester United fan. You know? So all of these things we do, it doesn't matter. All of those other things, we're all just Man United fans, and that's all it needs to be. But the World Cup itself was quite successful, Andrew, from what I can tell. I didn't watch it, but it was quite successful. And we have had owners come into the Premier League from other countries that haven't necessarily tried to instill their values. So in a way, is it more just the moralistic bits? Because when you look at Sir Jim Ratcliffe, there's accusations. From what I can see, I've got absolutely no clue if any of this is true, but again, talking potentially about fracking. So wherever you go, environmentalists might be having a go at Sir Jim Ratcliffe. You've got people who might be having a go at the Qataris. Do you think there has to be an element of the fans can't control who owns the club? So therefore, do we have to try and detach from that, no matter how unsavoury it might be? Because ultimately our first love is Manchester United, the club, not the person that owns it. Or what? How do you see that?
It's like Charlie said, it's such a difficult question. Do you look at it on the moral side, or are you just looking at it as a fan point of view, just the football side? Obviously, the Qataris coming in has definitely raised the stakes, and obviously their links, well, the bid being linked with the state as well, which I think is obvious as well. And I'm just thinking, a club of our rich history becoming, the latest in that nation's, project to, grow their influence on the world, and it just. Is are we going to go down the same line as that's worked for Man City and now Newcastle, with Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia coming in. So it's just for us. I just think it's presenting a problem. It's just I'm just thinking back when Rupert Murdoch, when he was at Sky trying to buy United, it was he was whether he was going to spend that amount of money on the club, and all those concerns, and obviously we saw Murdoch off, but. I think now it's just before it was on the top of English football. Now we've got other teams that are competing at the top. So I think some fans think cold hard cash is the only way we can compete with other clubs now that are owned by nation states. So it's a difficult one. I support Manchester United. I support the football. So but then there's those concerns with human rights and their views on homosexuality as well. The Qataris, it's just like
just very. This is the issue, I think, with the Qatari bid. The fact it's linked to the state. If this was an individual Qatari person that was coming in, and people can try and tell me all they want, it's not. It is the state coming in. It's the same owner as PSG have got. It's just a different division, if you want to call it that. And they're working around some little loophole to try and get. They'll assign their own board of directors and they'll put it under a different company name, but ultimately it's the same guy at the top, which is linked to the state. So people can tell me it's not state-owned. It is. That Qatari bid will be fully state-owned, and that's my issue and why you've got to talk about these points, because if it's an individual, you just look at that individual. We've got to look at the state because of what this bid is. It's not just an individual coming in, it's the state. And like you mentioned the Rainbow Devils, valid concerns. I'm not part of that particular group, but you speak to those kinds of people, there is a valid concern to raise. And I think a couple of points I was going to raise very quickly. The Western media, I do think, over talks some of the issues. I definitely think there is a part of that, but there is also valid concerns there. Deborah made the point about sports washing. I certainly don't want United to be a political piece for Qataris to be used in UK politics, because we've seen that before, not just with football clubs owning certain brands and businesses within the UK can be used to push things around. That definitely happens, whether people want to hear that or not. So I don't want to, and Barry, we were talking in a group chat before and you said, if it was another state, would you be annoyed? Yeah, I don't want any state owning us. I don't care what country or wherever it is. No state should be owning football clubs, in my opinion. It should be people, not states. So yeah, I've got massive concerns, and I think it's got nothing to do with it has a little bit the fact of it's linked to the Qatar state, but it's the fact it's linked to any state at all that I've got a massive concern with it. And obviously, like you said, Ratcliffe's got his own concerns as well. I've got some, and I think this is my point I was going to make. I think whoever comes in, there's going to be a group that are unhappy. I don't think there is an answer. I don't think there is a person out there. This says a lot about the state of billionaires, but I don't think there's a single person out there that's going to make everybody happy.
I think for me on this, I think for me there is 2 points. One, I agree with everything that's been said about Qatar. We've got to look at the human right, the way they treat women, and everything else. Look, ultimately, we're all Man United fans, but we're also Man United women fans. We all go to watch the games. And as advocates for that game, we've got to look at the way the Qataris treat their women. And it's abhorrent. I know John Fry or John Kay, they've mentioned Abu Dhabi. look, Abu Dhabi is probably the most modern part of the Middle East. In a way, it's got different. It's trying to become more modernized, invite Westerners in, and I know Qatar's trying to do the same. But the other side to this is Qatar own PSG, and as Connor said, we can't. If they come and own us, we're going to be looked at in a different way. And the other side to it, I think the way the Qataris run PSG, is that the way we want to be run? In a way, you look at the way that PSG is being run. It's not being run well. It really isn't. Yeah, they've gone out and they brought the fantastic Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar up until last season, and I love him. They had Ander Herrera playing in midfield, and I love Ander. But let's face it, Ander Herrera's shouldn't be in that kind of Galactico side. So they will bring in the names that will sell the shirts. They will bring in the names that will get bums off seats. But as Charlie said, I don't want anyone coming in and disrupting by bringing in a £200 million player just because he's going to sell £200 million worth of shirts. It's just not the Manchester United way. We've been down that road recently, and it hasn't worked. And there's that point. The other side to it, talking of Jim Ratcliffe, he owns Nice, and they're hardly setting the world on fire. So we've got two potential people coming in to own us who, one, aren't running PSG very well. And let's face it, PSG should be winning League by the end of the year easily with the amount of money they've got and the players they've got. And then Nice, they're not doing anything either. So we are in an absolute cleft stick here. Which is better for us? Is it the Qataris and everything that they bring and the money? Or is it Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Manchester boy, who knows Manchester United? And it's one of those, and no one's going to agree on it. And we're not going to be privy to who buys the club. We're not going to be in those conversations. We're just going to get told it's done. And it'll still divide, as Connor said, there'll still be a division of fans after it's done. So ultimately, the easy answer is with the Qataris, they can't change the way what they believe in. But if they come over to this country, they have to understand that we do. Rainbow Devils, you can go to the football with whoever you want. You can drink beer in our stadiums. You can wear a rainbow scarf. You can do all these things freely. And they have to understand that in our country. And if they don't, then it's a bigger issue.
I think, in fairness, there's been a lot of talk as well about while this whole Glazers out campaign's been going on. I mean, the Glazers weren't even letting some flags potentially come into the grounds. So, there's these things happening all over the show. I just want to address a couple of the comments, and then I think Connor's going to interject, which will be quite entertaining. So we'll see what he does. But I just want to point out a few things. Number one, her name is Charlie. It's written under there. So if you'd like to talk to her properly, that would be appreciated. There is no racism there. It is a British football club. Let's be absolutely clear about that. It is based in Manchester, which is in the northwest of the United Kingdom. And that's where it is. Nobody's saying that there's no foreign fans. We get that. We've got them all over the place. And we absolutely love them. There are people in Australia. There's people in Africa. There's people in Asia. That's what makes us the biggest and bestest club in the world. We're absolutely not saying anything there, and that's not what Charlie was saying. What she was saying is that it's a British institution, and it is. It's a place that comes from Britain. So we just wanted to throw that one out there. I'm not entirely sure what you meant by this one, Young Apex, but absolutely, it's their opinions, and that's what we're trying to say. Everybody's opinions need to be heard, and I think be respected as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that any one opinion is correct. It just means they've got to be heard and have a bit of empathy, I think, for how other people might be feeling. But equally, thank you very much for this as well. We've tried very hard to make this show as good as it can possibly be. And I just wanted to also point out this one from Paul. It's a fair point, absolutely. Qatar money is in Sainsbury's, it is in Heathrow Airport, it is in hotels. And I think the big difference that I've found from this one is that if you've got an objection to something, usually you have a choice. So if Qatar money's in Sainsbury's and you didn't want to go to Qatar, you can go to Asda, you can go to Lidl, you can go to Aldi, you can go to all the other Waitrose. It's up to you. If you don't like Heathrow Airport, you can go to Gatwick, you can go to London Stansted, you can go to Manchester, you can go to, there's plenty of places. If you don't like hotels, don't stay in those hotels. There's loads of them, Premier Inn, Travel-Inns. There's only one Manchester United. And that, I think, is what makes it so difficult for some people, is this is the club that they've supported all of their lives. Where do you go after that? There's no other clue. You can't just go, oh, all right, well, I'll go to FC United. That ship sailed as well. That was an entirely different time. So I think that's the tricky thing that some people are struggling with. You know, they've got to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea sometimes. And that can be really, really difficult. And you're absolutely right here. A British institution and a worldwide club. And yes, he did have a season ticket at Stamford Bridge, but you know, I go and watch Stevenage. It doesn't make him necessarily any less of a Man United fan, although he could definitely afford to go. Connor, what are you going to blindside me with here then?
Well, I've got a question. It's really for all of you as well, actually. But I was just coming back on this point because I don't know whether that's aimed at what we were just saying. The non-state-owned objections are relevant. It kind of ties into the point a little bit earlier on, and you hit them. Basically, what I was going to say. You know, you can not go to those things. You know, if you're against those beliefs and things like that, you don't have to go into Sainsbury's or Heathrow. But it's Man United. That's the team you support. You can't just change teams. I'm not suddenly going to go and start supporting somebody else because I don't like who's in charge of United. That's just not happening. So we can speak about that at the time. No, the kind of question, because it was as Mark was talking, it kind of, you know, when talking about how split the fan base is at the moment, obviously, I hate to say it, sorry, but obviously you guys are a bit older than me, so remember this a little bit more than I will, in terms of what it was like when the Glazers were coming in and what that split was like. Because everyone I speak to that knows more than me around that time remember it as being exactly like this. You've got people on one side wanting one person, you've got people on another wanting another. And I just wanted to know, really, does it feel very similar to that when the Glazers took over? Obviously, we know that FC United got formed when they took over and everything else, but before that, you know, when people were interested, was it like this, where you just have a split and the fan base is very much, very much split on that sense?
So I'm old enough. I'm going to out myself here. I'm old enough to remember Michael Knighton trying to buy the club. I mean, that was just a joke upon jokes. That really was. And then we had the Rupert Murdoch. We all forget Sky trying to buy us as well. And then the Glazers came in. I think the difference between all of this is that I think for so long, I think at the very beginning of the Glazering, when they first came in, we were still doing well. We were winning trophies year in, year out. And it kind of got brushed under the carpet a bit. However, as Barry and I think Charlie said rightly, they've always backed a manager. They've never said no, which, unlike some owners, I think it makes a change. I think when Sir Alex left and David Gill, as Charlie said, the cracks appeared in the club. And then, you know, we brought in, no disrespect, we brought in, you know, David Moyes, you know, and that was just a joke. We then, you know, we brought in Louis van Gaal, who was a good manager. It's just that he was too old to go against some of these guys. And then we brought in Jose, who we all thought was going to do brilliant and ended up doing okay-ish. And then the Glazers, you know, in their mighty wisdom, they brought in Ollie, who and his job was just to get the fans back on side. That was it. It was nothing more to me than that. And I love Ollie. Ollie gave me one of the best nights of my life in '99. He really did. And now we've got Eric. Yeah, we had the, you know, I've even forgotten the Ralph Ragnick months because that was just a joke. But we've now got Eric Ten Hag. We've got a proper manager who's doing the footballing side. So for me, it seems to me for a while the cracks were being shown. Now the kind of, because we're doing so well on the pitch, it may seem to some that we're papering the cracks back up. However, once you've opened those cracks, you can't put them away. So this feels different. It does. It feels different. It feels like the end game's here. And for me, whoever comes in, the fan base will always be divided. And I don't think you're never going to have a fan base that is 100% behind its owner, ever. Whichever way we go.
I think that's a massive point. And he's taken the words basically out of my mouth as you were asking, Connor. It was very much like that from what I can recall. But Alex Ferguson was just Alex Ferguson. You know, he did what he does. He kept us successful, and all of those things that were happening just masked how people felt about it. We were annoyed, which is why I sort of jokingly said what I said at the beginning. You know, if we end up winning and I know that we probably won't, but if we end up winning a quadruple and the women do a double, you know, all of a sudden, is it so bad? And I think this is the thing. This is why I say there almost has to be a detachment between who runs the club and the team itself, because if we have no control over that, I mean, we have no control over the team either. But you know, they're the people that we support. They have no say in who owns them. But yeah, like Mark says, there are people that are not going to be happy no matter what. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, again, looking at the women's side, you know, top of the league at the moment, doing the best we've ever done. There's still people not happy. So it doesn't matter which way you go, really. There's always going to be a fly in the ointment somewhere. This is an interesting point that Jarvis made. He said, isn't it easier to control a state compared to a multinational corporation with all sorts of agendas? He quantified that a little bit further down, where he said, by control, I mean ways to influence the owners. That's quite an interesting point. I don't know. You know, we're going down a road there that I couldn't particularly answer there, I don't think. And I feel like on this one, Paul, you just sort of missed the point a little bit of what I was saying. I'm not saying that people don't. I haven't said that. What I said is you've got the choice. You've got the option. And that's the thing people forget. If there's an option, it's irrelevant. If you don't like what's on BBC One, watch ITV, watch Sky Sports. If you want my personal opinion, I'll throw it out there to you. I can't stand people that phone into Ofcom. What are they doing? There's about 9 million channels that you can watch. You've got DVD players. We've got iPads and things like that where you can watch YouTube and anything you want to watch. And you've got the power to sit there. You see something you don't like on the TV screen. You pick up a phone and you go, hello, Ofcom, I'd like to complain. There's 1,000 TV channels and the one I'm watching is showing me something I don't like. Get over yourself. Just put the phone down. Step away from the TV, maybe cancel your TV license. I don't think you need it. What you need is a good calm down, potentially in a bath with loads of candles and scented and all that sort of stuff, and just relax, because there's other choices, and that's the point I'm making. There's no other choice for the football club I support. This is it. This has been United. It's United till I die. I know I am. I'm sure I am United till I die. That's how it works, which is what makes this tricky as it stands. And a good point here, you know, we spoke about speaking facts a little bit. Let's see what some of you guys have got to say about this, because this was in my notes. What he said there is stop talking about the treatment of women, because we outside of Qatar also have bad behaviour of human rights, which is still happening in England. We've had the BLM, the racism things that have been going on, and you're absolutely spot on with that. Again, nobody's claiming that Britain's necessarily any better. And I think ultimately this is what it comes down to. It doesn't matter which option you go with, Andrew. There's going to be something about that bid that we don't like. Like we said, whether it be the environmentalists' action, whether it be the human rights action. I mean, there's no such thing necessarily as a good billionaire, is there? Because if they had all that money and they were that philanthropic, they'd give it away. So in that respect, speaking facts is quite correct. Would you not say?
Yeah, it's just there's good and bad in all owners. Some, like I say, I just think for the potential owners coming in, I think the first step for a new owner is not to take any money out of the club. I'm just thinking, obviously, the Glazer family, since they've been in charge, have set the bar very low. So I just think that would be the key thing for any new owner coming in, is you don't take money out of the club. And they've got to invest in the academy, the training ground, Old Trafford itself, even the surrounding area around Old Trafford as well, and obviously the men's team and the women's team as well. So it's just, yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting to see who comes in and what I know the Qataris have, they've been putting out more information, less so from Jim Ratcliffe. So I just hope we get more information in time as well, because I did read somewhere the Glazers have been sort of trying to, tell those potential bidders not to say what you're going to do, trying to paint them in a bad light. So, because technically the Glazers could just pull the plug and say, we're going nowhere now. So, and plus there's those potential, they're getting investments from hedge funds as well. So I think for the next owners, I think they must make their plans very clear and communicate. Communication's the key with us fans as well. That's the key thing for all us fans as well.
Charlie, I'd like you to come in on this one because we're talking about the treatment of women. Let's be honest, you're the only one that I'm aware of on this panel. So therefore, you're the one that's potentially best placed to ask this. But I do need to just I just built you up, Mr. Speaking or Mrs. Speaking Facts. I've just made it very clear to you that you made a really good point, and then you went and ruined it. Because I'm afraid I have to point this one out. Because if you think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and the clues in the name, was British, then I'm afraid we've lost ourselves entirely. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is Norwegian, not British. We loved Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because he was an absolute legend. If you're not sure, Google Nou Camp 1999 May. Honestly, best night of your life. You'll love it. But until then, Charlie, what do you think?
26th of May.
Sorry?
26th of May.
26th of May, and you might want to fast forward like 89 minutes of it because, to be honest, it wasn't the most exciting of games until we get to the end. But there we go. Charlie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's right in the sense that, like we said, Man United are always under intense scrutiny, and it's going to be more than ever with the takeover bid. And anyone that's looking to come in and buy Manchester United, there are going to be negative connotations regardless of whoever it is. There's going to be negative things that come out about them, and but people will come down more hard on particular things depending on what maybe directly impacts them more, or on things that might affect them personally. So yeah, it's a really tough one. And that's why I said before, I've just tried to be thinking about the football side of things because it's easier not to think about everything else that will come along with new owners. But anyone, like there was chat about, if it was Americans, that's not as bad. Not necessarily. Like you could look at all sorts of rights for things in America that aren't great here as well. So it doesn't matter who the owner is. There are going to be negatives and positives to each of them. And that's going to happen regardless. So that's why, and I think other people have said as well, just trying to put their focus on getting behind the team, so the teams of players that run out onto the pitch at Old Trafford and at Leigh Sports Village, getting behind them is perhaps how people are going to deal with the fact that a change in ownership might be really tough, depending on whoever it is that comes in from a moral standpoint.
Absolutely. Connor, we're going to pop to you in just a second, but again, I seem to be having a bit of an ongoing battle with young Paul here. Absolutely. What you need, you can get from Sainsbury's. That's right. You don't mind who owns it, but somebody else might. That's my point. They've got the opportunity to make that choice. John Commode, for example, couldn't care less. He gets his cucumbers from Sainsbury's. John Commode's not bothered. John Commode, quite happy. I, on the other hand, I'm quite happy. I might get some money off of this. I go Asda. I love Asda. Great place. Now, I've got no idea who owns Asda. Probably the Glazers, knowing my luck. Everywhere I go seems to be owned somehow by them. But there you go. Connor, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, the difference is on that comment that was on screen then that Charlie was just talking about. The main difference is the UK government doesn't own Man United. That is the difference. You're talking about Qatar because it's going to be state-owned. The UK government don't, and the UK state doesn't own Manchester United. That is the difference, and that's what I was saying earlier. I don't care what state it is. I don't want us to be state-owned. That's why we're talking about Qatar as a whole, because that's what this bid is. It's not United. It's not the UK government bidding for United. There'll be the same uproar if it was the UK government, as well as many others.
Fair points. And then the other part of what Paul's mentioned there, United fans will be on board if the Qataris do exactly what they say. Mark Henry, can you see a world in which any owner comes in and does what it is that the fans want entirely? Or will they be coming in going, it's my money, my circus, my monkeys, I'll choose what we're doing?
I think what will happen is you'll get a bit of best of both worlds on it. They'll come in and they'll do all these things, and all the fans will go, oh, thank God it's done this. And then, like the Glazers did originally, the Glazers came in and I think within their first, we brought in Juan Sebastian Veron, we brought in all these great players, and then it kind of started to go downhill. And I think that's what we'll probably see with whoever does it. The one thing I want to make clear for me is that I don't care which owner comes in. I don't. What I want to make clear is that the one thing that we need to protect right now at both levels, at men and women's, is to protect the current managers. To protect Eric Ten Hag and to protect Mark Skinner. Because new owners will come in, they'll have their own ideas, and they might say, Eric Ten Hag's not the guy for us. We want to bring in, I don't know, Maurizio Pochettino. Mark Skinner's not the guy for us to win the women's team. We want to bring in, I don't know, Serena Wiegmann. We need to protect where we currently are and not build away from it. We're building forward now. We need to just keep that going. And whoever comes in, back who's there. And I think that for me is where we'll go. So yeah, I think whoever comes in, they'll throw the money at it like they've said they would. And then when they've got what they want, when we've potentially won a Premier League or a WSL or even another Champions League, you might see them to start to pull away from what they've initially said.
What do you think to this one? I'm not sure who this person is. Don't see him in the comments often. But what do you think to this one, Mark? Do you want a new infrastructure above the new managers?
I'm going to say no.
No, so you want rather the managers?
No, I want the managers to stay who they are, and I want the people above the managers to stay who they are, because these are footballing people running a footballing club. You don't want to have an Ed Woodward situation. You just don't.
Yes or no, Andrew? Do you agree with Mark?
Ed Woodward and Andrew and I have talked about this in the concourse a couple of weeks ago. Ed Woodward was a brilliant, brilliant businessman. He could sell snow to an Eskimo, but he couldn't buy a striker to score us 30 goals a season.
Fair points. So, Andrew, yes or no? Agree with Mark?
I agree with Mark. And just even with Ed Woodward, great businessman. He was doing deals, in many different countries. Like I remember one deal. What was it? We had a Man United's name on a tractor, and I was like, "That's Ed Woodward." Before you could do a business deal with tractors, but on football inside, couldn't do it much. But that's why with Richard Arnold taking over, he's, from what I've heard and read, he's pretty much said, "I'm delegating to people that have more knowledge than me on the football inside. I'm letting the people do their job. I'm just there to delegate and help." So yeah, it's just I don't want a new infrastructure, but the man just keep it the same. Footballing people running the football club.
Absolutely. Charlie, yes or no? Agree with Mark?
Yeah, agree with Mark. Don't want them coming and ripping everything out that's already there.
Excellent. Connor, yes or no? Agree with Mark?
Yes, for the time being. Let's assess it in a year, 2 years down the line. Once under a new ownership, let's see how they get on. But I think Mark is right. It's certainly better now, it seems, than prior.
This is a quick fire one, literally. Nothing more than yes or no on this one. But Sporty came up with a question that I quite like. So it's yes or no. Not yes, but no, no. We're not Vicky Pollard. This is the question. Do the panel believe we will have new owners by the start of the summer transfer window? Yes or no? We're going to start off with Connor because he deserves to have the heat first.
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Sir Mark of Henry?
Yeah.
There we go. That's interesting. So we all think there's going to be a new one. My next question, which is my penultimate question, really, and then we're going to ask the special ones question. So it's a very good one. Well done. I liked that one. But my question is this. When the 1958 and lots of other people started deciding they were going to protest the club, the big banner that I saw on all of those, banners, funnily enough, was "We want our club back." So Jim Ratcliffe, the Qataris, Elon Musk, Apple, doesn't matter who it might be, if they come in and buy this football club, do you genuinely believe? Because I see a lot of people getting excited about the Qataris bid because it's going to be a fairy tale with all this money that's going to be thrown at the club. Lots of people wanted to Jim Ratcliffe for lots of reasons. Do you think any of these bids, and you don't have to be specific about which, but do you think any of them will really give us our club back, as in to us? Because I'm not sure I see a future for fan governance in any way within the football pyramid, such as in Germany, where they've got the 49-51% ownership. Do you think any of these bids give us our club back? And Andrew Wall, I'm going to start with you because I haven't started with you yet, and I think it'll be funny to see you panic slightly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. it's a difficult one. Like I say, owners are free to do what they want with the club, like the Glazers. They came in, shut the door and said, well, we'll do what we want. Not necessarily always thinking of the fans, but I just think I'm hoping potential owners that will come in will, put the fans at the heart of it. Because, as I said earlier, we're the custodians of the club. We'll be long here after, owners have come and gone. So, yeah, it's just, I'm just trying to think which owner would be best. Would it be Ratcliffe, the Qataris, or someone else that all got their good and their bad points? And I'm just thinking, I know Jim Ratcliffe, his proposed bid is for 69%. It's not for the full. The Glazers are still going to. Well, no, he's taking the Glazers share of 69%, so there's still that 31%. It's not necessarily saying he's not going to. Once he come in, he wouldn't take the other 31%. But if that was the case, I'd say, well, take the 69% from the Glazers and get the other 31% and give that back to the fans in the fan share scheme. That's something we haven't heard of much recently. Is that fan share scheme that the Glazers were looking to set up with the supporters trust? So I know there's a lot of legal things that have to be going through, but I'm just thinking there's been, there's pretty much been silent in the minute. So it'll be interesting if, new owners would propose a fan share scheme, because it'd be nice to own shares in the club and, you invest in your time. We all invest our own time and money, going to matches and everything else associated with United. So, yeah, so that's my view on that.
Charlie, does this give us our club back?
I'm muted.
Yeah, Deborah does mention this. The bid for Sir Jim did mention something about fan involvement, ownership.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Obviously didn't expand on that. Didn't go any further into that, but probably won't until when he has the club. I don't know. Like, I follow the 1958 a little bit. I don't know if they mean literally. Do they mean literally have ownership of the club, or do they mean have our club back as in where Man United used to be, which was obviously debt free and at the top of the pyramid when it came to club football across Europe. I'm not sure if perhaps, I don't know, maybe one of the fellas can sort of let me know if maybe that's what it's more in reference to. But yeah, I can't see major fan share schemes happening in this country at the moment, just with the way ownership is going across the board. Because obviously it's going to be United bought out next, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Liverpool followed very quickly by Arsenal, and so it goes on.
Absolutely. Mark, your thoughts? And I'll just point out what Paul said here. He doesn't want John Murto. He mentioned that earlier. Potential owners need to consult with everyone, not just MUST. Must need to accept that there are other fans who don't always agree with them. But of course, we know that there's lots of fans. I mean, I'm not a part of Must. This is the whole point. We've got to listen to the opinions of everybody. And that's the entire point. Must is a part of, an arm of the supporters. But what's your thoughts? Does this give us our club back?
So I'm with Charlie a bit. I follow the 58, and it depends what they mean by getting our club back. Is it something as simple as getting us back on the top, winning trophies, winning games, winning league titles, is it something as simple as that? Because under new ownership, potentially, yeah, we will get the club back. Is it the Glazers going, but then having someone else coming in, again owning us, but having no debt? Is it, it's open for interpretation. As regards to the fan share plan now, because it's no longer called the fan share scheme, the name has been changed. I'm on the committee of Must. And whether people like Must or not, that's up to them. However, I'm a Must supporter, because I think what they do sometimes, and I'll say this, sometimes goes against them and sometimes it goes for them. But for them to go down and fight tooth and nail to try and get shares for fans to own a piece of their club is, what they've gone through, what the rules and everything, they've tried to find a way to make this happen, and it's still going to happen, because this is something that the Glazers promised. Joel Glazer promised. Even now, he said he was still going to do it. It's great. I want to have a share of my club back. I own shares back when we were, when we had to sell them for Murdoch. for the Glazers coming in. I had shares then. I want shares now. I know I can go and buy them from the US stock exchange and pay some ridiculous price, but if the Glazers are going to give up some of their shares, then I'll gladly take them.
Yeah.
You're never going to appease everyone, and you're not. And this debate could go on for months upon months, but we all agree on one thing: we all want the Glazers gone. It's just who you bring in now after that that's going to keep us happier or make us happier, because there isn't the perfect owner, and I think that's the bit. There isn't that one perfect owner who's going to come in and go, put their arm around all of us as fans and go, I'll take care of you all. Because they're in it for their own as well. They're not in it for us. They're in it for their own because they'll want to make money on what they've put in.
Absolutely. It's interesting that Carve from Sky Sports News was saying that both the Qatari bid and the Sir Jim Ratcliffe, none of them want to make any money out of it. They do. They certainly don't want to make a loss, that's for sure.
The two bids that have come in, they've reportedly come in under value. Now, no one's going to go in at full value. No one's stupid enough to go, okay, you want 6 billion, here's 6 billion. From what I understand, they've come in at just over 4 billion each. There's a lot of wiggle room still to be had.
Absolutely. And like you say, lots more conversations to be had on that. But Connor, do you see this as a way of United fans getting their team back?
I mean, Mark and everyone, and Andrew, what Charlie said is right. It depends on what you perceive as having Man United back. Is it just getting rid of the debt? In that case, then Ratcliffe's not your option because that's exactly what he's doing, albeit with Ineos. So it's slightly different, but it's still under the same brand or the same umbrella. Yeah. If it's a wider political issue, then obviously Qataris are out because that wipes out obviously that side because it's going to be state owned. And then you can reel off a list of people and so on, and there'll be an issue with somebody. I mentioned Elon Musk earlier. People have got issues with him. You can mention the Saudis potentially showing an interest. That people have got issues there. People have got issues with, with America. There's so many. So it depends on what it means for you as a fan. Mark was talking that, when the club was, I can't remember what year it was it 2012 when United was floated? Made it a public home when you could buy, as Mark was saying, when you could actually buy shares and things like that in United and things like that. But the key thing is the Glazers own the voting rights, and that's the difference. They own the stranglehold, obviously, of the club. Now, you look at the difference in the two public bids. Ratcliffe wants the Glazer share, the 69%, I think it is. The Qataris want all of it. They're going for the full 100% by the sounds of it. So I don't really know. I don't think it's going to bring Manchester United back because I think that's different to every fan. Bring Man United back to me is winning trophies. I don't really care about the debt too much because it's not my money at the end of the day, going into that too much. And also the final thing I'll say is, when you talk about fan involvement and things like that, if you're a billionaire and you're buying something for potentially 4, 5, 6 billion, are you really going to care what some fan on the street is saying about you as an owner? If to put it very bluntly, people aren't going to like this. If I was putting 5 billion of my own money in and someone's trying to tell me what to do, I'd be telling them to fuck off, quite honestly, because of the amount of money you've just stumped up to own a football club. Nobody makes money out of football clubs, really, apart from a select few. United are one of them. So, I don't think they'd look into it too much.
Can I just jump in on that point that Paul Greaves has made about the voting shares?
This one?
Yeah, that's wrong. All the shares that the fans are going to get have got the same voting rights as the Glazers. That's the point I just wanted to make. That's wrong. We would all have voting rights.
Good point to make. Jonathan Ball does care about the debt because he thinks that impacts on us. I'd love to know how you think it does. Please let me know. Do you mean us as in the fans or us as in the team? Whilst he's doing that, he made a couple of other points. He said that if the Glazers don't sell, he can see violence happening. The attitude to the Glazers is that heated and hated. And I love this one. This is comment of the night for me. The Athletic did a poll. Only 1.8% didn't mind the Glazers staying. And I can only presume Glazers and the family voted in that 1.8%. So very good. Well done. You are commentator of the evening.
I presume the poll that Jonathan's talking about is one the Athletic did, because what's amazing is that 66% of people wanted Jim Ratcliffe. Only 17% want the Qataris. And just to keep Connor happy with his potty mouth right now, Elon Musk got 3% of the vote.
Oh, nice. So he's above the Glazers. What I found interesting about that, though, is I think that poll was taken before the actual bids came in. So once the bids came in, then people started to look at the fact that Jim Ratcliffe's one was potentially going to have debt put on his company, for example, and that the Qataris were just basically going, here's the money. We'll pay for everything. Don't worry about it. The meal ticket's on us. I think a lot of people swung. And I think if you did that poll again, I think people would potentially change, because I think they've seen the dollar signs. And
I think just very quickly, Barry, the Qatar public statement helped, I think, in their favour as well. Ratcliffe said roughly what he'd do, but the Qataris were straight out there, full statement. This is what we're doing, investment in this. We want to bring Man United back, 92 Foundation, all this thing. Said all the right things. So a lot of people saw that and went, oh, money, right things, and all that kind of thing. And it's just an easy option then to go, oh, there's money there. They want to invest. Let's go for them, without actually looking potentially at the wider picture, I think.
The Manchester United Norwegian Supporters Club, which is the biggest supporters club of Manchester United in the world, they did a poll of all of their members. And I think it was 83% wanted, this was done yesterday, 83% wanted Jim Ratcliffe as the new owner.
There we go. As we all know, the Man United Norwegian Supporters Trust, I'm sure, is British based. It must be. Don't forget, that's where Ollie's from. All right. So it's a British bid. It's a British bid. But there we go. Right, Jonathan, I still don't know what you're talking about. You just put that's the one. So I'm just going to go yes on that one. And Mark, Paul's come back. Where are they? It was never going to happen.
It is happening. It is happening. But it doesn't happen overnight. These discussions where we are now at, I think we're at the final end game. I think it's now just a matter of time, but we also have to see where this goes now.
Fair enough. Right, we've got a final question. It's literally quick fire, just like we had before. The views are shooting up. It's lovely to see you all in here. You're gonna have to rewind, I think, because I can't keep these lovely people much longer. They've all got cups of hot chocolate to have, and all that sort of jazz. Thank you again for getting involved in all of our comments and everything. But there was a really, really, really good question that actually bamboozled everybody backstage. And so I'm going to ask them it, because that's just the type of guy I am, really. And here it is. It was Connor who brought it up. He said he doesn't want to be state-owned no matter what. Well, we're going to ask him last. But this was the question that the special one came up with. He said, would you rather be state-owned or have the Glazers stay? So that's your options. You can either say state-owned or Glazers stay. We haven't started with Charlie. Let's start with you. Hates me now. It's a good job she's muted, because what she actually said there probably wouldn't be repeatable.
You have started with me before. What state is it? Can I choose the state?
Any state.
So I'm going with the state of Australia. No, let's go state of New Zealand, then state owned. State of New Zealand.
I feel like that's cheating a bit, really, isn't it? But it's in the spirit of the question that they're asking.
Oh.
You finding it difficult? Do any of you have an answer immediately to mind to save poor Charlie, who's scratching her head here? Well, I think Mark has.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to go. Look, I want the Glazers gone. So for me, there's only one answer, and that's state-owned.
Interesting. He's gone straight in with it. No messing. Andrew Wall, I want to save Connor till last, because I know he's the one who's going to blow us up even more. What do you think?
It's almost like it's better the devil, but it's like Mark said, I do want the Glazers to go now, so I want to go state-owned.
Right, that's what I was going to say, but I was nervous about it.
See, that's why I helped you out at the end, Charlie.
Yeah, so I'm glad those two have put their head above the parapet.
Lovely. And so because of that, Charlie, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, yeah. I hate the Glazers. I hate them. So anything but them.
Interesting. Well, let's be honest. This is going to be the one. I'm going to leave
Elon
it
Musk.
because I think I know where he's going to go with it.
Just to build it up, just to build up a little bit more. Vincent put in the comments he thought it was Malta. No, Malta's the oldest supporters club in the world, not the biggest.
There you go. I was just trying
to build it up a bit more for you, Connor. Just to build it up a bit more for you. And someone's actually put in they want Jim Ratcliffe all day long, not state ownership. There you go.
Yeah, well, we're going to look at a few comments before we let Connor effectively end the show. It's going to be like The Sopranos. We're going to do that, and then it's all just going to go to black as the world goes, because I can't wait to hear what he's going to say. But there we go. Lots of things being said. You guys have been superb in the comments. You really kept it going there, so well done. Jarvis says, to understand people who want the Glazers to stay rather than Qatari, one quote comes to mind. It's better to be unhappy and know the worst than to be happy in a fool's paradise. And that's by somebody who I can't say, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Because you know what? Unlike him, that's not something I would happily guess people's names. Jonathan, thank you very much. If you haven't liked the video, please do so. Like and subscribe. We love that. John Fry has gone state owned. Paul is still cracking on. They're not here long enough. They had this sale plan before, but they've promised it. Listen, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then we haven't got our club back, I think is where we're going there. John Commode has got lockjaw while saying state owned. That's too easy. Yeah, there we go. Everybody going state owned. Paul Greaves has gone state owned. It's like everybody saying state owned. Got here. The owners would have their job with ownership. Niall's gone John. It's gone Jim Ratcliffe. John hates the Glazers. John Commode, get the Glazers out. I like how Elon Musk bought Twitter. He tried to back out of the deal and raised the price to buy against himself. Yep. Jonathan Ball, hashtag Glazers out. Somebody should get that trending. Just want the Glazers out, full stop. It's unbelievable what people are going. And it's heartbreaking for Vincent. He's going state owned. So speaking of ownership, let's go to the owner of.
Look, everyone's going to hate me when I say this, but let me back up my point. I would rather they stay because I am so against state-owned clubs. I genuinely think it would. I think it takes away from what Manchester United is. I tweeted this at the time. Man United should be different. The heritage that we're built on, we should be different. And I think if we go state-owned, we are. Yes, we've still got the history, and you could argue City and other clubs don't. But I would argue we lose some of that if we go to down the same route as what City, PSG, and these other clubs have done. I don't think we're any different. So I would. It's not a thing I say lightly. When I saw that question come in, I was in our private chat saying that's a hell of a question because it's a real tough one. But for me, I just never ever want to see United state owned. Saying that, if we are going to become state owned, I'm not going to suddenly switch off. The channel's not going to be just shut down, and I'm going to stop supporting United. That's not going to happen because, as I said at the start, I focus on the football side more than I do the people above that. I'd rather just enjoy watching the team week in, week out than get too involved in all of that above. And John, I see what you're saying. Let's just have a bankrupt club. I mean, I don't think you've got to worry about that because the club's being sold anyway. I know in the title it's saying Glaze not selling off. There's potential for that, but I think they've gone too far now. I think for them not to sell. But
what do you make of that then, Connor? United are state owned already?
I mean, officially we're not, but I can see what you're trying to say. Officially we aren't. I just don't like this whole. It's the way football's going. Like I think Barry, you said it, or Mark, you said. I can't remember which one now. You were talking. I know you look so similar, but one of you said it. Talking about Liverpool and Arsenal be next. I think they will. I think the Chelsea sale has kind of blown everyone. The money that was getting banded about. That's just the start. So yeah, unfortunately, it's the way it's going. I think you'll see more of these kinds of sales. Like I said, I've got other alternatives that I would prefer over the two that we have got offered so far. But as we know, there are private bids that we don't know about. So yeah, in answer to the question in a long roundabout version, I never want to be state-owned. So in answer to that's a very tough question, I'm going to have to say Glazers over state-owned purely because I'm just so again. I think United should be different.
There you go. Well, it was a very good question, and obviously I'm not going to answer it because I'm just a host and nobody really cares.
Hang on, Mark's shaking his finger.
Can I just throw in what would make a lot of people happy? Because I saw someone mention this last night. Could you imagine, in a perfect world, we get taken over by an owner, whoever that may be, and the Glazers by Liverpool.
Oh,
You
that's
see?
amazing.
Quite funny. I do like that. That would be a good idea.
They
Absolutely.
could buy it for $2 billion. They're getting 6 from United. They could buy it for 2.
It would be quite funny.
I can't believe we've not even mentioned their game last night. Not even in passing.
Well, I mean, we could have done, but we couldn't spend the next hour just laughing with our side splitting, and we've got to get past tomorrow yet. So I might save mine until Friday. Join the show Friday if you want to laugh at Liverpool, potentially. Listen, you guys have been superb. Thank you so much. It's been a longer show than normal, so apologies for encroaching into your Wednesday evening. But you've all been absolute legends. Everybody's got their Twitter handles down there, so please do go and follow them. They are all cracking people. You guys in the comments have been absolutely superb. If you've missed anything, play it back, like and subscribe, do all the usual jazz. I think ultimately the way to finish it off is simply this. We've just got to respect everybody's opinions. We've already said nobody's going to agree with everything. There's going to be people that are for the Qataris, people that are against them, people that are for Jim Ratcliffe and for others. We've all got our opinions. We've all got our thoughts on what we feel. I think we just need to accept. I feel a bit like Jerry Springer doing his closing moments. But I think it's really important that we do just take into account that we're all Manchester United fans, and that's ultimately what we all care about. In order to that question, Glazers out, or would I go state-owned? Ultimately, all I care about are the players. Whether it be Manchester United women, whether it be Manchester United men. We just want them to do well. We want them to perform to the best of their abilities. We want to see Marcus Rashford on fire, scoring goals like he did against Barcelona. We want to see Leah Goulton getting the ball across for Leslie Russo. Katie's Ellen corners, last-minute winners against Arsenal, winning in the Nou Camp. We want to be winning trebles. We want to be doing all of those things that makes Manchester United the absolutely bloody brilliant club that it is. And really, the team or the people that own it, are they the things that matter? I'm not sure it is in the grand scheme of things, but we'll see as this all unrolls. Thank you so much, everybody. You've been absolutely superb. Join us again on Friday for the Barcelona review. Cheers all and good night.